Well, a troubling story out of Mammoth Lakes with 3 children suspected of an assault on another child. Now, according to a press release from the Mammoth Lakes Police Department, on Tuesday, January 21st, Mammoth police were dispatched to a residence for a report of an assault. Now, upon arrival, officers learned that the victim was a 6-year-old girl. The victim told officers that after she got off the school bus at Snow Creek to walk home, other students had pushed her down, kicked, and punched her. Now, with assistance from the victim, officers identified the 3 suspects who were also students at Mammoth Elementary. Now, one of the children was contacted at his residence, and then all 3 were interviewed the next day at school. Now, per the victim's mother, she took her daughter to Mammoth Hospital where she was treated for a concussion. Press release states that the 3 juvenile suspects were a 6-year-old boy, a 6-year-old girl, and a 7-year-old boy. Their names are being withheld due to their ages. Now, the reason for the coordinated assault is still unclear, but may have resulted from a prior snowball fight. Press release notes that Mammoth Elementary is assisting with the investigation and took appropriate disciplinary action pursuant to their policies and procedures. Now, the case has been referred to Mono County Child Protective Services, Mono County Juvenile Probation, and to the Mono County District Attorney's Office for review. Well, Bennett Kessler filed this story as a barometer of the community. Bishop Visitors Bureau and Chamber of Commerce Executive Director Tawny Thompson brought the Bishop City Council up to speed Monday night. She pointed to the unfortunate result of drought headlines for the Bishop area where water and lakes draw tourists. Now, Thompson said there were some negative headlines recently, apparently referring to business closures of Whiskey Creek, Barbecue Bill's, and a dry cleaners. Now, drought is in the news also. Thompson said Fox News called her and planned to come up to do a drought story. Said Thompson, quote, "I hope we can convey that while the drought is serious, it would be worse to report tourism is dead," end quote. Now, Thompson pointed to the Pleasant Valley Reservoir and Owens River as popular waterways, even if Bishop Creek lakes are dry again this year. Now, Thompson said the Bureau has received many calls about the closure of Whiskey Creek restaurants. She said groups are looking for alternative meeting places. Thompson said her office is encouraged by all of the contacts about plans for summer visits to the area. Now, the Bishop City Council themselves turned to the issue of whether or not to support Senate Bill 405, which would ban single-use plastic bags in California stores. City Administrator Keith Caldwell told the council legislators are making changes in the bill. The council decided to put off another vote. The last vote was a tie when just 4 council members were present. Now, Jerry Gabriel of the Bishop area argued to keep the familiar bags. He said it seemed kind of heavy-handed for legislators to tell us how to carry groceries. The council did vote to approve the first reading of an ordinance which would change the times they meet from 4 p.m. for study sessions to 10 a.m. and 7 p.m. for regular meetings to 1 p.m. Now, Councilwoman Laura Smith was the lone no vote. She said daytime meetings would limit public participation and numbers of candidates for elections. The daytime meetings will save around $12,000 in overtime for staff who will already be on the job during the day. Now, this issue comes back for a second reading at later meetings. Bishop City Council approved a resolution which names Bishop as a HEAL city. That's healthy eating, active living. They okayed a contract with Mammoth Lakes Housing to monitor grants for first-time home buyer loans, and the council agreed to lift the hiring freeze for the police chief to hire 2 new Level 2 reserve officers. And Rob Gill filed this report. The Mammoth Leadership Forum is trying to stay relevant in an ever-changing political climate. Now, this group of politically active residents meets Tuesdays at 6:30 p.m. at Rafters in Mammoth Lakes. The forum's mission is to, quote, identify and persuade the best possible candidates for public office and encourage them to run or serve in a public capacity, end quote. Furthermore, the Leadership Forum supports and assists campaigning candidates and strives to, quote, identify and exchange ideas, concerns, and needs in our community while supporting our elected and appointed officials with developed issues and and solutions, end quote. Now, this last meeting of the Mammoth Leadership Forum took place January 28th, had a sparse turnout with only 8 people in attendance, despite their huge email list. Now, one possible reason for the weak showing may have been the fact that a similar group called Mammoth Forward meets at the exact same time. Now, the Leadership Forum addressed that very issue and moved to better coordinate with other political groups in Mammoth Lakes. As a matter of fact, the evolution of the forum was a hot point on the agenda, with many different ideas coming from current Mono County Supervisor Bing Hunt, who is not running for re-election, Jack Copeland, Sandy Hogan, and more. They discussed how to get, quote, ideal candidates out of the woodwork, end quote, as well as developing new strategies to educate voters about the issues and candidates. Though this is considered the pre-election period, they are trying to get candidates to step up so they can plan debates on issues. The forum then spoke of possible candidates and their stances on various issues. Now, the leadership forums that take place on Tuesday nights, also a place where candidates can come and present themselves to the community and answer questions about their platforms. Stacy Corliss, who is looking to replace Bing Hunt as the District 5 supervisor, was in attendance on the 28th and answered the forum's questions and spoke of her upcoming campaign. Both Kirk Stapp and Greg Eckert are also gunning for the District 5 seat. Corliss spoke of her opponents and shared some ideas with the forum. It may be considered a pre-election period, but it appears as though Corliss is already hot on the campaign trail. And Bennett Kessler filed this story. They adopted a drought proclamation, described a visit with the Los Angeles mayor, and considered placement of their proclamation on a joint Inyo-LA committee meeting agenda. The Inyo County Board of Supervisors acknowledged the serious environmental conditions so far and got it on the record. Now, the board supported a 3-page drought proclamation with some wording changes, which makes note of our serious situation: very low snowpack in the Sierra, dry wells in Bishop, concerns about use of water on the dry lake, and the need for LADWP and Inyo to plan for dry times. Philip Anaya pointed to the need for dialogue among Inyo, DWP, Edison, and others to look for ways to live with drought conditions. The Owens Valley Committee also weighed in. Now, later in the meeting, when the Water Department asked the board about items for the Inyo Los Angeles Standing Committee meeting February 7th, the outspoken DWP lessee and rancher Darris Moxley stood up and said, quote, "The drought proclamation should be addressed at the standing committee meeting so that they know what has happened." Also said Moxley, "I've dealt with DWP for a long time. They like to delay, and they will." Now, Moxley said she thought it was important for this to be on the agenda February 7th, since the meeting will take place in Independence and local people might like to be there to talk about the adopted proclamation. You can see more on this story on our website, sierrawave.net. We'll be back with more news.